that I found really interesting last year. Yeah. Thanks. Always tell me this because I always forgot. I can see yet on my back. Today, two former students of this course present their booklet projects, and I found them super interesting. Wait, I'll open also my cam so Anna can see me from. Wait, I want to do from the top. Hi, maybe you can see me from top part. And I found them really interesting because of the quality of the work, but also the research, the process that they developed throughout the entire course. So I leave the word first to Anna and then Elisabetta, if that's okay. Hi, Anna, can you hear me? And can you try to talk?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello. I want to share my screen.
Thanks. You can shortly describe how your project was developed and what you did, what are your policies?
Yeah, my project, just a second. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the topic of my project was about time. And I started from just finding a topic that was personally interesting for me. And the topic that I think usually about. And I was trying to find my personal point of view, how I can express my thoughts in the form of a book. And I started by collecting my personal statements, what I think about time in general, of the concept, what does it mean for me, how I perceive it in my life. And as a conclusion, I get to kind of a short statement that for me time is constant continuity, and I try to continue this idea in many aspects of the book. I will describe them later. And besides that, that time is constant continuity, I also was thinking about how to convey the amount of moments that we have in time, that time is consist of. And I was using actually the numbers of clocks that we see during the day. So I wanted to encompass all the numbers that note time, and they are finite numbers. So the time actually is not infinite. I wanted to precisely describe this, that we can perceive it as infinite, but still we have finite life of our time of our life, at least. So I wanted to concentrate on that. And shortly, the approaches that I used is quotations from Bible, I used visual metaphors, and I used this idea of continuity. So about quotations, I found the book, Bible book of Ecclesiastes, where he talks about time in many aspects, and talks about different containers, like how time can be contained in different events or subjects. And literally it talks as this: for everything there is a season and a time for very purpose under heaven. A time to be born and time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck up. flying, etc. There is a time to something, to some event or some object, and I did those quotations on the one part of the book, and the opposite to them, I put my illustrations to that quotation. So I wanted to connect the text from book with my own perception of it in the form of abstract images. And that's how it looks like. On one part, there is a textual part. On the other part, there is a abstract image. And about images, I wanted to precisely look away from the way how we perceive the time as something connected to events or objects or old new things. We can see them visually by that. Feeling time by visually see oldness or newness of some objects. But I wanted to be to widen the perspective on looking at time on these things, to be more abstract and not figural. So I used more non-figural objects or impressions, compositions that basically are printed by letter, like home usage letters that just printed in hand and then scanned and developed into digital images. And basically those dotted lines are also connected to the concept of time, because it's something that goes along the line, also separates in some small parts. And just for me, it gives me this perception of what I call a time. And I started from some sketches that I was doing, some imagery with these dotted lines, and I was going into images itself. So about the subject on continuity is also referred to a form of book, because I wanted to be a book that also in form of kind of continuity. So I wanted it to be a Leporello book, and to unfold its story by the kind of how you look into book. You also get this perception of something lasting, of something being linear and uncovering itself through the continuity. And again, I used these imageries of basically numbers, and they are real numbers that we have during the day. So basically hours, minutes, and seconds, what we see on the clock during the day, all the seconds, all these numeral numbers were set in a line of numbers. Sometimes they were put on top of each other, like here, because otherwise the book would be 500 pages. But I wanted to compress them, so I used also layering. I used putting them one up of the other. And for me, this also was very important to really factually have those numbers that are really ever possible to see, like on the clock during the day, during any day. So basically, it's kind of a physical embodiment of what time is during the day. What amount of moments do we have each day? And maybe we don't really consider them or don't mention them, but they are there. And I think, in general, my wish was to propose to reader to think about the time, how we use it, and how we can spend it more wisely.
Thank you, Anna. It was really interesting. There is any question here in class, maybe on how she realized it? It was a accordion book, Leporello book. How many meters was it long?
Actually, I didn't count, but it was, I don't know, maybe 20.
Yeah, and I have the binded form here if you want to browse it. And any questions on the process by Anna? No, you're outstanding from this project. Okay. One question. How did you put all the pages together, Anna?
I didn't understand the question about physical putting them together, or in digital, or in
physically the Leporello.
Yeah, just glue them together like small chains of pages glued together into one line.
Yeah, overlapping, maybe little parts overlapping. Yeah. Any other questions? Did you fold it by yourself?
Yes.
Yes. How long did you take to do the book? I think the overall process. You mean from the idea? How long did it take?
For me, it was the longest part was to decide how I want to do it, because I had some different ideas about using some old books, like material things or something. Like for me, it was a really long part of choosing how I want to do it and what will be the main topics that I stick to inside of the book. And then when I decided and I made a decision, it was quite easier for me to just produce the ideas, make them come into life. So, yeah.
Yeah, we took some time to understand the project, but then I remember in the end it was not so difficult. I remember the first two presentations that you didn't decided yet what direction to take, but at a certain point, that was set. So yeah, this means that take some time to nurture your idea and develop it. Is not you pick an idea and that's it, and you just work on it. Try to understand why you want to work on it, what you want to say, and take your time. Okay. Any other question? Okay. Okay, thank you, Anna. I will leave you since I know that you have class, and I don't know if you want to say something else. Otherwise, we'll see each other. Are you in Rome now, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you need anything, let me know.
Okay. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Anna.
Bye.
Ciao. Okay. I've seen there is also Estelle online, but if she's okay with that. I will let first present Elisaveta that is here in class, and then you can go.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay. See you soon. Do you have the pen drive? Okay. I will put it, and I will leave you the. Okay. Okay. Wait, I have to share the screen, otherwise. Okay. Okay.
What should I press here?
Bottom right, the third from the bottom.
This one?
Yeah, the last one. The last one.
Hello, everyone. I would like to present my book, which I made for this class the previous year. I decided to choose the cultural macro area because during this project, I wanted to explore the city of Rome, where I live now. And also, I wanted to connect it with the story of Iosif Brodsky. He's my favorite Russian poet. I am from St. Petersburg, Russia, and Iosif Brodsky is also from St. Petersburg. So I know quite a lot about him, and I visited his places in St. Petersburg. And I thought that it would be really interesting to follow his steps also in Rome. So he's a Jewish Russian poet and writer, and he was made to immigrate to America from Soviet Union. And he became a professor in the American University, and he also got the Nobel Prize in Literature. And he at first came to Rome as the fellow of the American Academy in Rome. And since those times, he visited for several times the city, which he loved. And I wanted to explore the places of Iosif Brodsky in Rome, some places that he loved and which inspired him for his poetry, because he has a lot of poets about the city. So it turned out to be like a guidebook. And now I would like to tell you about the production steps. At first, I decided on the content. I wanted to use in my publication historical documents referring to the time that this poet spent in Rome. Also, film photographs of places. I used my film camera and black and white film to emphasize the historical atmosphere of the book, and also maps and walking roads. Then I started to collect some references for inspiration, and at this step I decided on the binding of the book. I wanted it to have an open spine and a simple cardboard cover. And also, I was really inspired by the examples of these colorful inserts and the type of content which is referring to historical documents. I decided to put exactly like this. Then I created a flat plan to understand the book structure, and then I proceeded with layout. As you see, I use 6 columns on the spread and different types of typography. I tried to bind the book by myself. That's why it's a little bit falling apart, but that was an interesting experience. Here you can see the cover from the cardboard and a photo of the poet in Rome placed on it. And now I would like to show you some spreads of the book. The front matter, the contents, emphasizing 4 roads, the map with places marked on it with different shapes, the introduction, and this is an example of the informational spread with small typeface, I write the historical background of each place, and the bigger italic type is for quotes of Brodsky from his thoughts, his essays, and his poetry. For example, this one is about Via Giulia, which Brodsky called one of the most beautiful streets in Rome. Almost after each informational spread comes the spread with the photo of the place. I tried to make them symmetrical so that they were looking good on the spread. Some other spreads, and this is an example of this insert on the colored paper. This is the postcard which Brodsky has sent to his parents from Rome with the photo of Piazza Navona and a joke poem on the other side. That's all. Thank you.
Any questions? The production process, the idea in general? Don't be shy.
Did you print the text?
Yes, I printed all the spreads in the right order. Then I flattened them, and then I used this thing to put them all together, and then I made the binding as a sew-in.
Was that your choice to do it by yourself, or everybody did that?
This was my choice on how it will look like and how to realize this. As I know, you can make different types of binding.
It really depends on the project. Some students decided just to go to a print shop and say, can just print me this stuff on this binding. Some others, maybe like Elisabetta, needed something more peculiar, so they did it by themselves. But binding is not so difficult in general. So you can also print with a domestic printer and bind it by yourself. It's really just a matter of time and patience, I think.
So you'll do the project like this at the end of the semester?
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Which type of paper did you use?
Which type of paper?
Yeah.
It is called Materika Gesse paper, and I honestly printed it in Russia during my holiday because it was easier for me to communicate with typography and to explain them what I want.
This for the Italian students of this course, please help out.
And also I had an opportunity to go to the typography and to touch paper and to choose the one which I like. You can also touch it because I have the printed book with me.
After the presentation, there are the examples I did, which one of them can you see? Okay, any other questions?
I made a map in some special online service. Now I don't remember, but I can write later how is it called. There you can choose a map of any city, and then you can choose colors in which you want it to be, and for example, which inscriptions will be on the map. So I chose the colors of my project because some spreads are on the dark, so in dark color. So I used the shades of gray for this map. But in this case, you have to be to know in advance that sometimes it could be print more dark than you expected. How was my case?
Gray and black. It's one side.
Yeah, darker than it was on the screen.
Yeah.
So it's just on the internet you can Google and they just have like maps of the city very. Okay.
Yes, and then you can choose colors and even typeface. And then I have put the image of the map in InDesign or Illustrator, and then I added my yes, names of places and everything.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Amazing project.
Thank you.
If you want to stay with us for the last presentation, then
Yeah, of course.
other people can have questions on that, we can see it together. Okay. So Estelle, can you hear me?
Yeah, normally I can hear you. Is the sound okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
You can present your screen. I will.
No, but I prefer, if it's okay for you, I prefer to present the booklet in the physical way because the format is quite special, so it will be easier to present like with the booklet. But
Okay. Yeah, as you prefer. I have the physical copy also with me.
yeah, also yeah. No, it's easier to explain all the details inside because, like in a flat way on the screen, it's not the same. I prefer it this way.
I will try to show it also in physical form in front of
Yeah.
you while you talk. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. It's not the best version that you have because I kept the best one. So sorry if there is some mistakes in the one you have.
No,
This one is better.
It's fine. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, about my booklet, it's present like this way. And yeah, it's quite special because my topic was about the colors of Rome. I had this idea reading a book, and yeah, I found it just interesting. So I started to do some research. And doing my research, I realized that there wasn't a general book that presents the subject in like an introducing way, if I can say. So the starting point was this idea to provide a guidebook, a kind of guidebook, to explain all the issues around the colors of the facade in Rome, and more specifically, the way to restore it correctly. So from the starting point, I had the idea to develop a kind of toolbox. So that's why I chose this kind of binding. The idea was to recall a kind of workbook or scholar book, something more that you can handle like in a large way, not like scientific book that you can find in library. So yeah, to recall the tall books. So I have from the left part some tools, and from this part the main booklet that I organize in 5 parts. And my point was to try to produce the booklet as simple, concise, and accessible for the general public. The idea was to not provide something too much technical. So I try to put a lot of images, a lot of colors also, and also to organize the booklet like in 5 parts I put on the side also to make easier the reading of the booklet. So yeah, I put a lot of images, a lot of diagrams, and also to make more dynamic the reading, I used a lot of small pieces that you can fold and fold also in these parts. So the idea was to produce a booklet quite dynamic and playful to read. So yeah, in a visual way with colors, images. So yeah, the idea was to develop it in this way. So when you open it, you have first all the main tools that you need to understand this part. I have the leaflet that I put it in the booklet, more about all the issues of the color restoration. I tried also to produce a visual dictionary to give some vocabulary, architectural vocabulary. I put also a color palette and a kind of poster that you can, like a flyer in a way, that you can unfold, etc. And when you have read this part, you are ready to understand all that it is in this one. So with a kind of notice at the beginning to explain how the booklet is composed. And then a classic structure, if I can say, like the summary, then the introduction, and then the parts with the same structure at each time. So the main title, a small introduction. The idea was not to produce too much text, more in a visual way. So you have only one page of text, and then you have the content of the part. So this one was about the history of the colors. This one is about the atmosphere, so to show the atmosphere in Rome. So I put some pictures. Then you have to show some examples, like wrong examples, to understand what you don't have to do. So with some pictures of the facade. And each time with some explanations at the back of the pages to explain what's wrong. Then we have the part with the public directive, like the current rules about the colors, with the diagram to explain in a way more understandable for the people. And the last part, which was the main one, because it's all the steps to restore correctly the facade. So you have each steps and the detail, the explanation that you can fold and unfold from each part. Okay. Bibliography to give some books if you want to develop the subject. And at the end, I put some other papers like photos and note pages if you want to take notes or those kind of stuff. Okay, so the idea was to design all the booklets in this idea of toolbox, and I think that's the main advice I can give you. Try to identify a main idea, like a concept, a kind of concept, but it's not like it could be something about the topic, not about the design, like me. In my case, it was the toolbox because it links also with the subject. But when you identify a kind of concept, then you can develop all your booklet and the design of the booklet in a way that it would be more consistent and coherent, like links all the details between them and develop it in a coherent way, if I can say. So that's all. I don't know if you have questions. It was quite quick, but
Yeah, no, totally fine. Any questions? No questions.
Oh, I'm not sure to have been clear, but
No, it was clear. But
okay, perfect.
Like something that I want to point out that as you can see, this is a binder. This is a Muji binder because when we were discussing the form of the booklet, the toolbox, I mean, it's difficult to bind something where you have a lot of parts that can be removed or taken out. So, in the end, there was not actual binding in the production of this booklet, but there was this structure, this skeleton from Muji, this binder, and then everything was produced on this skeleton, on this structure. So this is something that is worth mentioning, I think. Yeah. Any other questions? No.
Perfect.
Clear. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Estelle.
Thank you too. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. So obviously, I think Anna left. Estelle, if you want to stay with us, there is another part of the lesson. If you want, you can follow, but probably you have better things to do. We see some of the booklets of last year, so we can take on the curtains or open the light. I will show it here, and if you have any questions, we can see it together, especially on the final delivery booklet. Thank you. the lesson, and we're talking about a concept that for me is fundamental when drawing and understanding everything that surrounds us in design, in drawing in general, and we'll see some examples. I will go fast, so maybe if there is something that interests you more inside this presentation, you can see it by yourself. So the name of this part of the lesson is Proportions and Still Life, and this is something that I really want you to understand really well. I also seen in some of your assignments that the concept of proportion is not totally something that you still manage to, in a way, control. What is proportion? So proportion is the relation between parts. The square is the most proportionate figure, because we know that as one side that is the same of the other. This object helps us out in understanding the proportions that are inside any kind of object. This is John Berger. This is John Berger. This is John Berger again. What changed? What is changing between these two images? Proportions, obviously. So the moment we change the proportions of an object, we're modifying it, we're stretching it. In design, is something that if you're doing something weird on purpose, stretched, it's okay. But if you don't control this aspect, you really can have horrible images. In this case, John Berger has a specific proportion, and the proportion of the screen is 4 parts in the bottom part and 3 parts in the height of this frame. That is how old television used to be in this BBC program, The Ways of Seeing. So what is proportion? It's the ratio between parts, and ratio means division, and to divide, it means how many times an element, so a module, enters into another element. And how this concept applies to anything. This is, for example, the elevation of Santa Maria Novella in Florence by Leon Battista Alberti. And proportion is something really different from the concept of measure. Measure means to proportion using a conventional module, such as the meter. So we take a meter and we measure an elevation, for example. When we don't have a measuring object, we can use proportion to redraw an element, an object, a facade in this case, by understanding the relations between parts. So we understand that the top part of this facade is the same height of the bottom part. We realize that there is a square regulating this part of the building, or that the architectural order is the same module replicated different times. So understanding the proportions really allows us to understand images in general. For example, and you will get to know this image that I always use in all my drawing courses, is this still life, Natura Morta con Brocca, by Carlo Carrà, is an Italian artist. And let's say we want to replicate this image. How can we do that without having a ruler? The answer is proportion. Thank you very much again. Bye. The answer is proportion, and proportion can be found in any part of the image. Is the relation between all the different parts. So, for example, I want to replicate this image, and I start taking a module, and the module is this fig that we have here. And I start to think about it, and I see that this fig is the same height of this other fig, that is the same height of this cup. But if we multiply for 2 these figs, they don't add up to this other, how do you say it? How do you call this one? In Italian is brocca. How do you say it in English? Do you know? Pouring? No, jug to pour water, okay? And we see that 2 figs are 2 figs and a half are a jug. But then we discovered that the small jug is half of the big jug. And the distance between the big jug and the top of the drawing is a small jug. And that's proportion, understanding the relation between all the parts that compose an image. The moment we understand these parts, we start to see these colored lines that help us out shape an image, we can control any image, any object, and represent it in an accurate way. Before entering in the exercise, let me talk about this guy here. There is Hannes Itten, a German guy from Bauhaus. It seems a villain from some kind of James Bond movie, but he was a great teacher, even if he had really horrible ideas on genetics, but we will not talk about it. And he invented the Vorkurs methodic, is the preparatory course of Bauhaus. Basically, when these are some of the artworks by Itten that we will not discuss. Basically, what happened at Bauhaus, at the beginning of Bauhaus, was that if you wanted to follow the classes, you first had to do the preparatory course. There was a course for every student, and it helped them to, give the same information, the same basic level to everyone, to work with images, to work with photo, theater, and all the stuff that they did at the Bauhaus. Inside this course was held by Itten. They work on two concepts: contrasts, that I forgot to translate, and intuition and method compared to the subjective capacity of perception and objective understanding. What does that mean? 3 were the fields that were analyzed within the preparatory course: nature and materials, analysis of old works of art, and nudes. In the first part, nature and materials, the students were stressed to look and search for materials, create combinations between them, and then find ways to represent them. So each student had to find materials, assemble them in objects, and then represent them in different ways. This is Oskar Schepp with the different objects, and this is Herbert Bayer with fabric and wood shavings. Basically, what happened is that they had to find every time different techniques in representing a three-dimensional object, also by drawing. So it's composition, both on an object way and in a figurative way. Then they worked on nature, so they drew a lot of nature. And I don't know if you ever try to depict a tree or let's say a flower, you will see there's no easy job. I mean, it's a lot of work to understand how the plant is actually growing. Try to observe in depth a tree. To really depict it in a good way, it's a lot of work. So working on natural images really gave a lot of work on the students to understand what was the best way to represent it and to capture the essence of the plant. The second part of the preparatory course worked on the analysis of old works of art. So basic part of the formation of every designer or artist is to know the history of art and any art. And studying the history of art and trying to replicate it was part of the preparatory course. What Itten said was, do not be discouraged if your reproduction does not correspond to the original. The more completely the painting comes to life in you, the more perfect your reproduction will be, which is an extremely precise measure of your ability to empathize. If you feel the work of art deeply, then it is destined to be reborn within you. What does it mean? That we need to, obviously we need to know the history of art, but the thing that we need to do is really to understand art, understand the motives behind the artist's will, understand what the piece of art means, and then everything that we will produce out of this understanding will be a reproduction that is, I mean, destined to be reborn within ourselves. So this was a fundamental part of the course. And then there was the study of the naked figure. There was obviously like a sum up of all this information, because representing the human body is one of the most difficult things to do. And so each artist, each student worked in different ways. Other concepts of the beginning of the preparatory course was the geometrical figures. So what Ethan tells us is that all of the images, we can, let's say, split them and understand them through geometric figures. And so the work on that was on contrast, as we saw before, but in understanding how these geometric figures appear within different objects. A lot of work was made on sculptures and understanding how these three-dimensional objects interact together to understand three-dimensionality, and starting from a reproduction, a perfect reproduction of a still life of geometrical forms, to become more abstract with subsequent drawings, as you can see here. So this was the study of elementary geometric shapes. So the students needed to reproduce these three-dimensional objects to understand how they intersecate between each other. These are some of the drawings by Ethan that I will not talk about because it doesn't interest us. He wrote different books. Probably the most famous is The Elements of Color, that talks about how color combined can give us different solutions. And directly linked to that, I wanted to show you these images that are from, wait, before going on, I want to show you something that hopefully you already read. So it's the course program. Read the course program. Please read the course program. Inside the course program, you'll see that there is here, famous artist course. This was a course, correspondence course from the most famous American illustrators of the time, and we can access it for free from someone really kind that decided to upload it on this Google Drive. And this course is, you can access it for free, and it's really complete because really it teaches you how to draw. And it teaches you, you will see in my presentations, there are a lot of time, there are images that are taken from this course, but following the explanation inside and following the exercises that they propose, all these illustrators, Ronald Rockwell is one of the most famous, you really can learn how to draw in a perfect way. Obviously, it's a lot of work, but it's totally doable. Sorry, short parenthesis. So, three-dimensional objects, everything that's around us has its own basic shape, and this basic shape is regulated by proportions, okay? So we have different sides that are in relation, each one with the other. The cube is the most easy one. It's really super easy to understand and find this kind of forms within objects that we know. The sphere can be slightly modified to let us represent different kinds of objects. The cone, again, super easy, and we can, like for example, a tree, we can refer it to a cone, and then the cylinder. If we start to see every object in our surrounding as a combination of geometrical forms regulated by proportions, representing any object becomes not an easy task, but just a matter of understanding what we're doing. So we have basic forms, the steps in producing this kind of drawings, and even a face, that something that seems really difficult. If we manage to split it in different parts, we see that it is not so difficult to compose it. Even a doggy here, we can compose it in different cylinders. So now we see there is a still life. Okay, so a still life is a series of objects. There are no actual live figures, so alive figures inside. It is just object fluids composed in a way that is interesting to represent. And as you can see in reproducing this kind of photograph, we can grasp the structure of all the elements by reconducting them to geometrical figures. Okay. This is about the shading, but it's something that we adapt later. So first we see the structure, and then we add the shading. The technique of squinting the eyes is something that I recommend you to do. So if you want to see an image, you want to split out the different parts, so like the colors, the shapes, or the shading. Squint your eyes. The level of detail goes down, and you can understand separately all the different parts. You can really focus on different parts of the image. So in drawing something in 3 dimensions, we have to understand which is their position in space, and then arrange all the different objects, like if they're inside a box, okay, 3-dimensional space. This video that you can find on YouTube is from Kim Jung-ji. He was a Korean, because as Jason Pollan he is dead now. All the best drawers somehow are dead at a certain point, even if he was really young. And he shows the methodology of his drawings, starting from an imaginary box where he puts all his characters. So, still life. What is a still life? It's something that a lot of painters through ages used to represent a specific historical period, but it's also something that is difficult to represent because of the shading, the colors, and everything. So it's an exercise that almost every painter was challenged by doing any kind of still life. So today, before doing a small exercise on proportion, to understand the basic proportions of geometrical figures, we will draw some still lives, and we will do it step by step, so don't worry, it will be an easy task. But before doing that, we work on basic shapes. We must think about the proportions between elements, and if there is a module inside these images that help us out in representing it in a correct way. And we start from this image, and I will put a timer once I have explained it, because I think we can only use 5 minutes to draw this image. And what can you see in this image? What can we use as a module to measure all the different parts? The blue square, because it's 1 by 1, so it's really easy. And what can you say about the square? Yeah. 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 So starting from this concept, I'd say 5 minutes. Let's try to replicate this image. Obviously, if you don't have colors, it's totally fine. But I'd like you to do it on a centered within your page. It must be at the center of the page. So be really careful on where is the center of this image. Understand where is the center of this image, and then try to center it within your page. 5 minutes. In height or in you can see it by yourself. There is a grid, there is a module you can see. There is a module that you can discover within this probably the blue square can help us crack this module. As you can see, there is 1, 2, 3, and 4 modules for the base, and 1, 2, and 3 modules for the height. So it's kind of a rectangle where inside there are squares, and this is just the regular square, this is 2 squares, and the triangle has the base in the first 3 squares at the base. That's the proportion that, you know, links all of these images. Sorry? No, not colored. No. If you want to do a tiny text or to differentiate them, it's okay, but not mandatory. Okay. So this was just to break the ice and to start to see the modules and the proportions between parts. Now we go back to the Carlo Carrà. natura morta con Brock. And drawing this image is a little bit harder because we have to take a full page of our notebook. We have some time, like at least 10 minutes, I'd say, depending on the progress. But the difficult part here is that first we have the proportions of the canvas. So that's something that we must keep in mind. So probably it's a square with a little bit of something more on top of it. So if I can give you a tip or just give you a hint of what to do, if we do like a square here, we see that if we start from a square, the top part of the big jug, it's in direct connection with the base square. And then we have another tiny bit on top of it, just to start the dimensioning of the object. But as I told you before, we have some objects within this image that help us out in representing in a correct way. So yeah, let's go to the next. Take a full page for this one. Don't forget about the canvas. I mean, we just don't want the objects, but we want the full canvas inside. Obviously, in 10 minutes, we're not shaping it in a perfect way with all the shading, but just where the different elements are inside the image. Be careful because the shape and the proportions of the canvas probably are not the shape and the proportions of your page. So it is not the page equal canvas. They're two different things. We do this drawing where I stress your speed in drawing, and then the next ones are more relaxed, and we take some time in doing that. Don't worry. Fig, and here the bottom part and the top part. This line here, there is the end of the table, I guess, and signing here by Carra. Anything is part of our relation between parts, so please keep it in mind. Get a module, as we saw before, maybe the fig or the jug or whatever you need. And then little by little, like doing a Sudoku. Have you ever done a Sudoku? Do you know how they work? You start little by little to add numbers, you cross check if they add up in the end. The same is with proportions. You start with a module, with an element, and then little by little you check, okay, maybe this distance is the same as this one, or maybe not. Maybe it's the same, but with a tiny bit more. So that's the process that must, let's say, happen in your mind while looking at this image. And again, we got 10 minutes, 5 left now, but spend some time also in looking at, trying to discover these proportions. I know that it's difficult with not so much time, but losing some time in understanding images can help you out in the long run. Something really useful that I didn't tell you, but I see that some of you are already doing, is to use horizontal and vertical lines to see at which height the different elements are. So for example, if we do a horizontal line here, virtual horizontal line, we see that these two figs are almost on the same base. Maybe this one is a little bit higher. And again, if you do a vertical line, we see that they're overlapping, but just a bit. So using this kind of lines helps you out in understanding the correct position of the elements inside. Show you a few last things before you're free to go, and also to stay, finish the drawings and whatever you want. So the other exercise that you can do until the end of the lesson, or that you can also finish at home, is pick one of the following still lifes from this presentation. So this one from Giorgio De Chirico, this one from Margaret Olley, or this photograph, but actually still life, with La Cupola by Aldo Rossi, really famous coffee maker, for Alessi. So you can pick one and try to replicate on your notebook. As an exercise for the weekend, I really encourage you to create your own still life, to challenge yourself in understanding the proportions. We will see a lot of this kind of stuff, in the sense that proportions regulate almost anything that we will do in book design, drawings, and anything. You will understand with time that most of the artists and architects through ages really got stuck on the concept of proportion, of the golden section, all of these things. The moment you're going to design an object or just a drawing or whatever, it's important to understand them. The moment you're replicating the page of a magazine, always keep in mind that keeping the right proportion is fundamental in understanding images. So after saying that, I will upload this presentation so you can work on your own on the other still lives. And before saying bye, you might have noticed that inside here, we have the class assignments. That is just the already delivered. Perfect. Deliver before 5 p.m. So I know that today you are present to this lesson. And the assignments, we have the street observation report that you can deliver within next week. You can finish it, what you started today. Obviously, I'm here. If you have any questions, we can see it together. And for next week, today we saw some of the booklets that were produced as the final delivery. And so you're starting to get an idea of the kind of projects that we want to achieve at the end of this course. And we also understood that the idea that you're picking today is probably not developed yet to the level of actually doing a booklet. So for next week, I want you to really think about what you want to deepen in your research. As I told you, pick a theme that you care about, something that you want to develop, something that you already know something, or maybe something that you always wanted to do research on. So that is not let's say a task that is, boring, you don't care about. Find something that you care about, maybe find a topic or alternatives topics, so that next week we can see it in a small presentation in the first part of the lesson. We see it together, I can give you feedback, we can discuss it, and then we can start working on the booklet with all the reviews that we were going to do in the following lessons. So these are the assignments for next week. Any questions? Yeah. So let's say that now that the class is over, so you're free to go. If you want to stay until 4:30, you can pick one of these three. The weekend. So the weekend exercise is not mandatory, but is recommended to, assimilate the concepts that we're seeing in classes. So also the last week exercise is something, a small exercise that I, propose to you to, assimilate this concept in a better way. It's not mandatory to deliver on Classroom. If you do it on your notebook, better, because I can see it at the end of the course. I can browse your notebook and see it. And it's just select some objects that you care about, some objects that are worth analyzing and drawing, maybe with a shape that is interesting to represent, and try to do your own still life with your objects and try to replicate it, keeping the proportions. The level of detail is not important in this phase. I'm mostly interested in understanding really the basic proportions of the different elements. So see it as an exercise that you can do or not do. Really depends on how much you want to work and how much you want to deepen the different themes. So any other question? Sorry?
The materials of this too, like just using pencil or...
Yeah. Totally up to you. Use the materials you want, but try to create a still life that has some sense. I mean, if you're using just 2 books, keep pretty boring. If you use some elements, an apple, a jug, a vase, and you combine them, a flower, then becomes something that is worth representing. It is also difficult to do it. So, yeah. Any questions? Any other questions? Okay. So I will upload this presentation. I will turn on the lights, open the windows so we can breathe, and I will be here to answer all your more specific questions until the class time. Okay?